the magic of being like a screenwriter or any of these sort of like crafts is to figure out the pattern, and then once you understand it, then figure out how to like bury it so that no one's paying any attention to it.
Logan, what can you tell someone that's never written a screenplay but loves film and television about the craft of screenwriting?
I think obviously it goes without saying that you have to read scripts. Like I don't know how you would approach it otherwise. I feel like actually reading them and then trying to figure out, like, through whatever means like are available to you, whether that's reading books or just sort of like trying to like take things apart yourself, like how do you reverse engineer to figure out why this works, right? And the hard thing with that is that there's a lot of things scripts are doing simultaneously, right? You have to figure out why it works from a pacing perspective and a plot perspective and a character perspective and, you know, and theme and emotional arcs and all those sort of things. But I think that the best way to do that is to read scripts and then try to reverse engineer them. And again, like there's a lot of great like material where people have done that, like, you know, Robert McKee and I forget who wrote Save the Cat. I have not read Save the Cat, but I definitely read Story when I was younger. The only other thing that I would say about it is don't think that any one like way is the only way. I think it's important to sort of immerse yourself in a bunch of different people's perspectives. And then I feel like by doing that, you'll actually start to understand why it's working. I think that emulating is an important part of learning, right? Even literally like children learn at the very beginning by just copying, right? Like they're just emulating what someone else is doing. They don't understand why. That's important. But I think to really sort of transcend that, you need to figure out why it's working, and you have to understand it on a much more sort of like intrinsic level of like, again, I always hate to be too mathematical about it, but so much of it is why this line here, why this beat here, what was planted when, and why does it pay off here? And okay, sure, that was all done just from a thematic like place, but are there different ways that you can infuse that to, like, you know, from a character perspective, or like, again, whatever that like sort of means, because all these different attributes are all sort of, again, happening in parallel. But I do feel like that's what's really important is, again, immersing yourself both in the raw material, like scripts and like movies. Oh, and I'll like literally like, sorry, I'm just like having thoughts that I'm doing this. Sometimes if there's a type of movie that like I'm interested in sort of like figuring out like why it works in certain ways, I'll literally like, I will both read the script and then I will watch the actual movie, and then I will like time out the movie and I will see like when like, I will see what in the script, how many scenes and where they were and what was happening in them. And then I'll put that against the actual finished movie. And then I'll say like, oh, okay. Because sometimes when someone writes the script, that isn't what ended up working the best in the movie, right? And sometimes you need to like look at the final holistic project to go like, oh, okay, like they made these decisions that even the writer themselves were not like thinking about, but if you watch enough material and you read enough material, you should find the patterns. I I think that the magicians, like the magic of being like a screenwriter or any of these sort of like crafts is to figure out the pattern, and then once you understand it, then figure out how to like bury it so that no one's paying any attention to it, right? That's not fun for anyone. People want the experience to be new and fresh and interesting. But even the stuff that is new and fresh and interesting, if you really sort of start digging in, you'll find it's the similar building blocks, you know? That's what I would say.
So when you see something that you resonate with, you want to really dissect, why did this work for me? And then you want to like look at the script and then time it with the actual, maybe even have the sound down at times, just to see some of the pacing and things like that. Because to you, that's like a magical product. How did it become magical like that?
Yeah, it's just really, like, to me, it really is reverse engineering. It's like if I walk into a building, it's amazing that the AC is running. Without seeing the blueprints, I'm not going to understand like why the AC is running or how it's running or why did they place it here? Because I'm just lost in the experience of it, right? But there's thousands of decisions that are made as to why, and however you start being able to figure out on your own like how to get to those answers, I think is really like important. And again, to me, the best way to do that is to just look at a lot of blueprints and to really like dive as deep into them as you can. And then again, looking at what people who are experts say and like understanding why they said the things they said, and then also take it with a grain of salt, because like they're also not the end all be all. It's important to be able to like listen to everyone and take it all in and realize why they're saying it, and then figure out how you want to like implement that, right? It's that balance. You have to respect like the experts at it, but you also have to then figure out how to take what they're doing and try to put your own unique spin on it.
What's the wrong way to start screenwriting?
The wrong way to start screenwriting. The only thing that I don't know the wrong way to start screenwriting. I do feel that like there's no real wrong way to be creative, right? Like, and that's different for everyone. And it should be. I think that to me, the only thing I would advise is to be conscientious of your time. Because you can play around with something forever, and maybe that's all you want to do. But I think that the more tools you can have to try to like stay on track while still like giving yourself freedom to play, I think that that's the best sort of like meeting of the worlds. And I will also say that I do think that it is also important to be aware that it is a business, and that like, and to have fun and to be creative and play, but also be aware for yourself that if you're writing something there's not a market for, maybe there will be, but there's also a good possibility that there won't be. And you have to make peace with that. And if that's cool with you, then that's fine. Like, again, that's you and your time. But if you're really trying to figure out how to transition into a career, that's something that I would say I would not pay attention to that. I think a lot of times people don't pay attention to things that like they find discouraging or uncomfortable or negative. My suggestion would be to really look at it in the eyes, like acknowledge it. It's the difference between like what something is and like what you want it to be, right? You can even look something in the eyes of what it is and go like, I don't love what that is. Like, I'd like to change it. I'd like for it to evolve and become better. That's all fine, but I would still start by like going, but this is what I'm up against. This is what people are like looking for. This is what's expected. This is all what the landscape really is, what that information is, even if you don't like it, even if it's scary or it makes you feel bad. You're not going to figure out ways to approach it like and work with it or around it or however you want to do it if you don't know what it is. From my perspective anyway.
When you were working on It Takes Three, were there times in your head where you're like, I'm not sure if someone's going to like it, how well it will be received, and then how much time am I going to spend with it? Were you questioning yourself too at that time? Because it was still sort of, you know, you said you were working on it in a few months?
In that situation, to me, the next sort of like step always is once I've come to terms with that I'm going to undertake a project, whatever that is, like, then I fall in love with it. There's no point unless something's really not working, right? And that's a different story. But otherwise, like I wish I knew. There's a very famous quote about this, but it's basically like some version of like, you do everything you can to prepare and then you just go. Like, and that's kind of, at least again, for me, I find that that's what's always been how I make decisions, is I do the most groundwork I can to feel as confident and good about something as like I can, and then I don't worry about that anymore. And then I just focus on being creative and doing the best job that I can, because otherwise you're just second guessing yourself for no point. You've made an informed decision, stick with your informed decision. And then if it fails or it doesn't get what you were expecting out of it, to me, outside of, again, that first sort of like thesis film, everything I've done that's been like, that hasn't gotten me what I expected or would have liked to have gotten out of it, I don't have any regrets about, because I believed in it. And I still believe in it. I think that sometimes that doesn't matter. Like, there's so many other factors at play. You try to make the best informed decision that you can about why you're undertaking a project. And then you just give it your all, and you don't worry about whether or not it will be successful or it'll do what you were expecting it to do, because you should feel confident in it even if external forces don't line up in a certain way that gets the result that you want. Because sometimes that happens and that's not your fault and it has nothing to do with the project. And so that's why I think that I try to approach it that way.